You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week on the Beardcast, we're going to jump into the great Gospel of Mark, chapter 1, verses 21 through 28, which is the this week's lectionary text for those of you that are lectionary people and are needing some kind of nugget for Sunday night or Sunday morning, whenever you're recording your sermon or however you're recording it. And so, Zach, why don't you do what you always do with the scripture reading today and read that for us?
Well, I'll take an aside, and I just say I have different adjectives that I use for the Gospel of Mark. But Matt can call it great all he wants, whatever. Luke is where it's at. Anyways, my chair broke. All right. So anyways, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1, verses 21 through 28. Fun little interaction here. Jesus getting down. That's what I will say about Mark. He gets down to being Jesus immediately, which is pretty dope. So anyways, Jesus and his followers went to Capernaum. Immediately on the Sabbath, Jesus entered the synagogue and started teaching. The people were amazed by his teaching, for he was teaching them with authority, not like the legal experts. There's a lot to unpack there. Suddenly, there in the synagogue, a person with an evil spirit screamed, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You are the Holy One from God." "Silence," Jesus said, speaking harshly to the demon. "Call out of him the unclean spirit," or "come out of him." The unclean spirit shook him and screamed, then it came out. Everyone was shaken, everyone was shook, and questioned among themselves, "What's this? A new teaching with authority?" He even commanded unclean spirits, and they obey him. Right away, the news about him spread throughout the entire region of Galilee. And so, Matt, we have a pretty epic scene here, right? Starts out pretty normal. Jesus goes in the synagogue, starts teaching, and then it gets dicey. Then it gets interesting. When you hear this story, what just sticks out to you in it?
Well, the fact that we go from the calling story where he's calling these people to come and follow him, and we're jumping into the situation in Capernaum in the synagogue. It's kind of like the first step. Like, and I always see Mark as this bowling ball of like momentum towards the cross. Like it's just the whole deal is to point us towards the cross, and the point is towards the whole idea of coming and following and all that stuff. And I see this as like this is the first step along the journey. And only that, it's like really kind of three steps. You have the his teaching and amazing people, and then you have the experience with the demon and him healing him, and then you have that questioning and wondering phase. So if you think about it, the overarching theme of Mark, you have that, like, here's the teaching, here's how to do it, here's the praxis, and then like here's the reflection after the point. Like, I mean, this would be a fun one to preach this Sunday. If I were preaching this Sunday, this would be definitely one I would probably preach, all things considered. And so, I mean, I don't know. I kind of, it's good to see Jesus do Jesus's thing. I mean, literally here in these 28 verses, like these verses, you get Jesus doing Jesus.
Right. And I talk trash about the Gospel of Mark. I really like the Gospel of Mark, but it took me a long time to get there because I like the storytelling of Luke and really the Gospel of John too. I mean, that gets it going for me. But what I love about the Gospel of Mark is it's Jesus being Jesus from day one, right? There's no bones about it. The writer of the Gospel is just like, here he is, here's where he went, here's what he did. And people were amazed, right? And I think what hits me about this is you're right. There's a fullness of who Jesus is from the onset, right? Jesus goes in, he teaches, he calls out demons, and people are like, "Whoa!" And then they go talk. They go tell the stories and do the things. And Jesus gets his street cred from here, right? Which I think is fascinating. But one of the things that I think we um, do with this text, or any time that we're talking about illness, whether it's Jesus healing people or calling out demons and things like that, we try to explain that away of mental illness and things like that. And I don't think that's not what Jesus is doing here. It's not, I don't think that's not what Jesus is doing here. This demon that Jesus calls out is not, we understand more in our context today than how this was explained and understood then, right? Everything was explained by a demon. It's just, if anything's wrong, they've got a demon, right? Or if they've done anything wrong, a demon did it, or it was something else motivating them. And I think that's the thing that you got to be careful with here in um, calling anything like that, an evil spirit, a demon, or whatever, making it a mental illness, making it something that it's not. Uh, Matt and I talked briefly about that there's the danger in that, right? For people sitting out in our congregations who have mental illness, to tell them there's a demon in them. No, that's not okay. So don't do that. Take it for what it is, and Jesus calling out um, the demon that's inside of this person, the exorcism, if you will, and the conversation that's had. I know who you are. You're the Holy One from God. It's naming that. It's naming who Jesus is, and playing into that same narrative of Jesus gets to it. And the writer in Mark is showing you this is who Jesus is, fully human, fully divine, and even the unholy, right, knows it.
Well, and I think that that's where, like, to if if you're a church leader and you're using like telling people you can pray away demons or pray away their
Yeah,
mental health issues, please don't. Just don't.
yeah, don't do that.
Leave it to the professionals. Like, I can't tell you the harm that I've seen caused because of that.
Mhm.
Because people just assume that the church can handle it when their church may not be equipped to handle it. Maybe they don't have the professionals to handle it. I've had people where I've had to just say, I really think you need counseling. And what you're dealing with here is more of a psychological issue than it is a theological issue. And I'm trained to do the theological, and
Mhm.
and I feel very confident in my theological training. But when it comes to the psychology side of things, man, like that's where I definitely am real big on referring people and making
Mhm.
sure that mental health is taken care of that way, because
Right.
that's really the best way. And I think too, like within the scripture, people were amazed at Jesus's teaching, but that's kind of the first, like, it's kind of the first, like, bum bum bum, like,
Mhm.
it's happening in the synagogue.
Mhm.
Like, it's raising those, those flags are being raised.
That's an important point, that Jesus doesn't start out on the street. He starts in the synagogue. He starts in the church. Um, yeah,
So
that's a fun point not to gloss over
yeah,
as
yeah.
to where
I
it
mean,
starts, right?
like here, I mean, granted, like, I mean, you can back up and say, well, he called the brothers outside, when they're outside, yes, and and even John's messages is outside. But notice, like, in particularly in um this reading, and it's something, if you're working through the Gospel of Mark, you want to pay attention to where the healings are happening. The healings happen inside. And just pay attention to that and see how that manifests itself throughout the rest if you're reading the rest of the gospel, which we will be in our church starting for Lent. But pay attention where those healings happen, and draw some attention to that, and being aware of that. Anything else, Zach, that you want to talk about today?
No, you look at the scripture on the surface level, and there's a lot going on there. We kind of focus on the demon because that's a little bit out of normal for us today in our context and understanding. But don't be afraid to dig into that and what that means, or explain it away as something that it's not. See the fullness of that conversation that's being had, and like Matt said, this is where the healing starts. This is where Jesus really steps into that and shows you who he is. And and like the end of the thing, the end of the scripture here, spread that news when you find these moments in your own life of healing or authority, or just you found something new in scripture, or your understanding of who God is. Share that. Don't be afraid to share that with folks, and be excited about that. That's and I think that's what we see here with the folks watching, being witnesses to this instant of, oh my gosh, there's something here. And let's find out more about that.
It's a good way to end that today. And I think we'll encourage you to go to our website at beardedtheologians.com and check out all of our great content. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to us as you go about listening to this. But I just always encourage you to go back and listen. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
First, guys, I want you to subscribe and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.